Okay, so we all have that feeling, right?
Yep.
Like, we want to speak English more confidently, but like the thought of actually doing it can be a little intimidating.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're diving into this YouTube video from Learn English podcast channel.
Okay.
The hosts, Leo and Gwen, they share some great tips to help overcome those speaking fears.
Yeah.
Are you ready to kind of break it down and maybe even discover some surprising facts about English along the way?
I am so ready.
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So, one thing that really stuck out to me was how Leo and Gwen emphasized starting small. Like, it's not about becoming fluent overnight, but it's more about, like, building this solid foundation.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating how they emphasize that because so often we think about like, oh, I need to be able to have this like, really in-depth conversation. But really it's just the small building blocks that matter.
Yeah, so instead of picturing ourselves like giving a TED Talk on day one,
Right.
we should really focus on mastering like simple phrases that we can use in everyday situations. Exactly. Think about confidently ordering your coffee, greeting a colleague, or even just commenting on the weather.
Oh, yeah.
These small interactions might seem insignificant,
Huh.
but trust me, they really build momentum.
Okay, and research actually backs this up, right?
It does. Carl White found that tackling manageable tasks creates this sense of accomplishment, and that keeps you motivated.
Yeah.
You know, it's like leveling up in a video game.
Oh, yeah.
Those early wins keep you coming back for more.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. I'm all about those early wins. But speaking of small wins, adding up to something incredible, did you know that the longest English fan fiction ever written was actually by a non-native speaker?
That's right. And you know, he used fan fiction as a way to practice and refine his English skills. Imagine the dedication
Wow.
and the sheer volume of writing involved. It's a testament to the power of consistent effort, even in something as seemingly simple as writing fan fiction.
I love that. That's truly inspiring. It
Yeah.
shows that like anyone can achieve fluency with dedication and the right approach. But what about those inevitable mistakes we all make as learners? I think the fear of making mistakes holds a lot of people back.
It's a common fear. But we need to kind of reframe how we view mistakes. They're not failures. They're valuable learning opportunities.
Okay.
When you stumble, your brain is forced to analyze what went wrong, which strengthens the learning process.
Oh, so instead of getting discouraged, we should see those oops moments as a sign that our brains are actively figuring things out.
Precisely. And research by Robert and Elizabeth Bohr even shows that making errors helps solidify learning. It's like taking a detour.
Okay.
You might not reach your destination immediately, but you gain a new perspective and a better understanding of the terrain.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It really takes the pressure off striving for perfection
Right.
and encourages us to kind of embrace the learning process, detours and all.
For sure.
So if I trip over a tricky grammar rule or mispronounce a word, it's not the end of the world.
Not at all. It's simply a sign that you're pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone and expanding your skills. Now, another important point that Leo and Gwen highlight is the power of listening.
Okay, so before we even think about speaking, we should be immersing ourselves in the sounds of English.
Absolutely. It's like learning to dance.
Yeah.
You wouldn't just jump onto the dance floor without first observing the rhythm and movements, would you?
Definitely not. I'd probably end up tripping over my own feet.
Right, exactly.
So we should be actively listening to podcasts, watching movies, and even paying attention to everyday conversations.
Exactly. Focus on the tone, the pronunciation, the way native speakers construct their sentences. It's all about absorbing the nuances of spoken English.
Okay, and maybe even trying to mimic what we hear.
Exactly. Don't worry about sounding perfect at first. It's about training your ear and getting comfortable with the sounds of English. Now, beyond individual words, Leo and Gwen also talk about the importance of learning in chunks.
Chunks, is that like learning phrases instead of just single words?
You got it. It's about understanding how language is naturally used in context. Think about common expressions like take a break, make a decision, or catch a cold.
Right.
These chunks help you speak more fluently and naturally.
So instead of memorizing lists of vocabulary, we should be learning how to use words in combination with others.
Precisely. It's about understanding the building blocks of language, not just the individual bricks. And for those of us with busy schedules, there are some fantastic resources that can help us integrate this chunking approach into our daily routines.
Okay, I'm all ears. Which resources are you thinking of?
Language learning apps are a great place to start. Duolingo is fantastic for building vocabulary and getting familiar with sentence structure. while HelloTalk provides opportunities to connect with native speakers for real-time conversation practice.
Oh, so we can actually chat with people from all over the world and practice using these chunks in real conversations.
Absolutely. It's a fun and effective way to improve your fluency. And if you're specifically looking to hone your listening and pronunciation skills, I highly recommend BBC Learning English and Elsa Speak.
Wow. So many resources to explore.
Right.
Sounds like I need to clear some space on my phone for all these apps.
Sure.
But even with these tools, I think a lot of us still struggle with actually speaking out loud.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do to overcome that hesitation and get more comfortable with actually using our English skills?
That's where finding a speaking partner comes in. It's like having a gym buddy for language learning, someone to keep you accountable and motivated.
Having a speaking partner sounds like a really good idea, especially to get over that initial fear of making mistakes in front of someone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It creates this safe and supportive space to practice and to receive feedback. Plus, it's way more engaging than just talking to yourself in the mirror.
Oh, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And it's more realistic, too, since, eventually we'll be using English to communicate with other people. But where do you even find a speaking partner?
Well, there are tons of options. You could ask friends who are also learning English, or you could join like a local English conversation group. There are even online language exchange platforms where you can connect with native speakers from all over the world.
So many possibilities. I'm already feeling more motivated to, put myself out there.
That's the spirit.
But speaking of putting yourself out there, I think a lot of learners, myself included, we get so hung up on our accent. It's easy to feel self-conscious about not sounding like a native speaker.
I totally get that. That's
Yeah.
a super common concern.
Yeah.
But what's so fascinating is that Leo and Gwen, they actually encourage us to embrace our accents.
Really, I always thought the goal was to, sound as close to a native speaker as possible.
Yeah, that's kind of the traditional view.
Yeah.
But think about it. Language is so much more than just pronunciation.
Mm.
It's about expressing yourself, connecting with others, and sharing your unique perspective.
So my accent is actually a part of what makes my English unique.
Absolutely. It's a reflection of your background, your culture, and your personal journey as a language learner. Embracing your accent adds this layer of authenticity to your speech.
That's a really refreshing perspective. It takes the pressure off of trying to sound like someone I'm not. But what about those times when my accent makes it difficult for others to understand me?
Yeah, that's a valid point. Clarity is important, of course.
Yeah.
But remember, communication is a two-way street.
Mm.
If someone is having trouble understanding, you don't be afraid to repeat yourself or maybe rephrase what you're saying.
And maybe even incorporate some of those chunking techniques that we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Using common phrases and expressions can help bridge that communication gap.
Okay, I'm starting to see the light. Embracing my accent doesn't mean sacrificing clarity. It's about finding that balance between authenticity and effective communication.
Exactly. And another key takeaway from Leo and Gwen is the importance of celebrating every small win.
Oh, this is one of my favorite tips. It's so easy to get caught up in what we haven't accomplished yet, but it's equally important to acknowledge and appreciate our progress, no matter how small.
I completely agree. It's those small victories that fuel our motivation and keep us moving forward. Whether it's mastering a new grammar rule, successfully ordering a meal in English, or even just remembering a tricky vocabulary word, take a moment to acknowledge your achievement.
Okay, so instead of beating myself up for not being fluent yet, I should be celebrating those little moments of success.
Yes, exactly. It's about shifting your perspective from focusing on what you lack to appreciating how far you've come.
I love that. It's a much more positive and encouraging way to approach language learning.
For sure.
Speaking of positive and encouraging, Leah and Gwen mentioned this technique called shadowing that sounds incredibly helpful for improving pronunciation. Can you tell us more about that?
Of course, shadowing involves mimicking native speakers to kind of refine your pronunciation, your rhythm, and your intonation. You listen to audio or video and repeat what you hear, trying to match the speaker's pace and tone as closely as possible.
So it's kind of like karaoke for language learning.
Yeah, that's a fun way to think about it. And it's surprisingly effective. Studies have shown that shadowing can significantly enhance your speaking skills. It's like having a personal pronunciation coach guiding you every step of the way.
That sounds amazing. What kind of materials can we use for shadowing?
Anything with clear audio will work. Podcasts, audiobooks, news broadcasts, even movies and TV shows.
Oh, so I could shadow my favorite actors and actresses. That's pretty cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just make sure you choose materials that you enjoy and find engaging. The more you enjoy the process, the more likely you are to stick with it.
That makes sense.
Mm.
And how much time should we dedicate to shadowing? Should I be shadowing everything I listen to now?
Well, enthusiasm is great, But remember, consistency is key. Start with shorter segments, maybe 10, 15 minutes a day, and then gradually increase the duration as you feel more comfortable.
Okay, so no need to like shadow an entire movie marathon in one sitting.
Exactly. It's about creating a sustainable practice routine that you can integrate into your daily life. And remember, quality over quantity.
Right. It's better to practice intentionally for a shorter period than to like force yourself to shadow for hours and end up feeling burnt out.
Precisely. And here's another crucial piece of advice from Leo and Gwen Fluency. Trump's perfection.
I'm sensing a theme here. We've talked about embracing mistakes, celebrating small wins, and now prioritizing fluency over perfection. It seems like a lot of language learning anxiety stems from this pressure to be perfect.
You're absolutely right. So many learners get so caught up in trying to speak flawlessly that they become hesitant and afraid to make mistakes.
Which ultimately hinders their progress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the truth is, even native speakers make mistakes.
Yeah.
They stumble over their words. They use filler words like and sometimes their sentences trail off. It's all part of natural speech.
So striving for perfection is actually an unrealistic goal.
It is. The goal of language learning isn't to become a walking grammar textbook,
Right.
but to be able to communicate effectively and express yourself with confidence.
Okay, so I should allow myself to make mistakes, focus on getting my message across, and not worry so much about sounding like a native speaker.
Exactly. Fluency is about the flow of ideas, the ability to connect with others and share your thoughts and experiences. It's about using language as a tool for communication, not a measure of perfection.
That's a really powerful shift in perspective, and it takes a lot of the pressure off.
It does. And remember, fluency is a journey, not a destination.
Mm.
There will be ups and downs, moments of frustration and moments of triumph. But the key is to keep practicing, keep learning, and keep enjoying the process.
I'm really loving all these insights. Leo and Gwen are really challenging the traditional notions of language learning and making it feel more accessible and enjoyable.
Yeah, that's what's so great about their approach. They emphasize the importance of making language learning a positive and rewarding experience.
Which brings us to another really important point: having fun. We've talked about a lot of practical techniques and strategies, but at the end of the day, if we're not enjoying the process, we're less likely to stick with it.
Absolutely. So how can we inject more fun into our language learning journey? Well, Leo and Gwen have some great suggestions for that. One of their key tips is to combine learning with activities you already enjoy.
Oh, that sounds right up my alley. I'm all about finding those little sparks of joy in everyday life. What kind of activities are they talking about?
Well, for example, they suggest watching movies with subtitles. It's a subtle yet effective way to pick up new vocabulary and to get accustomed to hearing the language spoken naturally.
Oh, I actually do that sometimes. And I find I often pick up new phrases and expressions without even realizing it. Why is that?
Because movies provide context, which is crucial for language acquisition. As Creation's input hypothesis suggests, we learn best when we're exposed to language that is slightly above our current level, but still comprehensible.
Oh, so it's like a mental workout for our language muscles. We're constantly stretching and expanding our understanding.
Exactly. And this principle applies to other hobbies as well. You can listen to music, read books, even play video games in English.
Wait, so I can level up my English skills while slaying dragons and completing quests. Sign me up.
Exactly.
What?
The possibilities are endless. The key is to find ways to make language learning a natural part of your daily life, something you look forward to rather than dread.
Okay, I'm definitely feeling inspired. But before we get carried away with slaying dragons and conquering grammar quests, should we take a quick break to let all this information sink in?
That sounds like a great idea. We've covered a lot of ground already, and there's still more to explore. We'll be back soon to continue our deep dive and uncover even more strategies for speaking English with confidence. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive.
Back again.
All about how to speak English with more confidence.
I'm ready.
Awesome. So it feels like we've uncovered so many great tips from Leo and Gwen's video. What are some of the key takeaways that really resonated with you?
I think for me, the most powerful message is that fluency trumps perfection. It's like a reminder that language learning, it's a process, not just a destination.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's so easy to get caught in that trap of comparing yourself to native speakers and striving for this flawless pronunciation. But that can actually hold you back from really expressing yourself.
Exactly. It's about shifting our focus from sounding perfect to communicating effectively. It's about using our unique voices, accents, and all to connect with others and share our ideas.
Right. And another key takeaway for me is the importance of making the learning process enjoyable. Leo and Gwen's suggestions for incorporating English into our hobbies and interests really stood out to me.
I think that's such a brilliant approach
Mm-hmm.
because when we find ways to make language learning fun, we're more likely to stick with it and actually see progress.
Right. And speaking of progress, I really love how they emphasize celebrating those small wins along the way. It's like such a simple yet powerful way to stay motivated and acknowledge our achievements no matter how small they may seem.
It's so true because those little victories fuel our enthusiasm and remind us that we're constantly moving forward, even when the journey feels challenging.
Yeah. So before we wrap up this episode, is there like one final piece of advice that you would give to our listeners? A sort of like golden rule for speaking English with confidence.
I think it all boils down to this. Start small, be consistent,
Mhm.
and most importantly, embrace the journey. Don't let fear or self-doubt hold you back from expressing yourself.
I love that. That's
Yeah,
a great way to put it. So to all of our listeners out there who are on this journey of learning English, just remember you're not alone. We're all in this together, stumbling, learning, and growing along the way. And, who knows? Maybe one day we'll all be confidently sharing our stories, accents, and all on the global stage.
I love that idea. Until then, let's just keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep celebrating every single step that we take towards fluency.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to end it. So that wraps up our deep dive into the world of speaking English with confidence.
Until next time.